What happens when Hollywood's most enigmatic leading man sits down with late-night television's sharpest tongue, only to discover that the host has a hidden agenda that goes far beyond promoting a new movie? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most explosive confrontations ever captured on live television. A clash that started as a routine interview but quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really motivated Colbert's shocking behavior. Now, let's get into this incredible story. The Late Show studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy. Ryan Gosling sat in the guest chair, adjusting his jacket and running through mental notes about his latest film project. He had done hundreds of these interviews, maybe thousands. The routine was familiar, comfortable even. Answer questions about the movie, share a funny anecdote from set, maybe tell a story about preparing for the role. Simple. Stephen Colbert emerged from behind his desk with that trademark grin, the one that had charmed audiences for years. But tonight, something felt different. There was an edge to his smile, a glint in his eyes that Gosling couldn't quite place. "Ryan Gosling, everybody," Colbert announced to the studio audience as they erupted in applause. "Thank you so much for being here." "Thanks for having me, Stephen," Gosling replied, settling into his chair. The audience's energy was infectious, and he found himself relaxing despite that nagging feeling in the back of his mind. Colbert shuffled his index cards, a theatrical gesture he had perfected over the years. "So, your new film. It's getting incredible reviews. Tell us about stepping into this character." Gosling launched into his prepared response, discussing the months of preparation, the research, the emotional journey of embodying someone so different from himself. It was a good story, one he had told variations of dozens of times in recent weeks. But as he spoke, he noticed Colbert wasn't really listening. The host's eyes had that glazed look of someone going through the motions, waiting for his moment to pounce. "That's fascinating," Colbert interrupted, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But let's talk about something more interesting. Your reputation in Hollywood." The audience fell silent. This wasn't the usual trajectory of a late-night interview. Gosling felt his shoulders tense. "My reputation?" Gosling asked carefully. "Come on, Ryan. We both know the stories. The difficult behavior on set, the demands, the way you treat people who aren't as successful as you." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the Stephen Colbert they knew, the one who made celebrities feel welcomed and celebrated. This was something else entirely. Gosling's jaw tightened. "I'm not sure what you're referring to, Stephen. I think there might be some confusion." "Oh, there's no confusion here." Colbert leaned forward, his smile turning predatory. "I've spoken to people, crew members who worked on your films. They paint a very different picture of Ryan Gosling than the one your publicist wants us to see." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Gosling could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on him, the studio audience uncertain whether this was part of some elaborate bit or genuine confrontation. "I pride myself on being professional and respectful to everyone I work with," Gosling said, his voice steady but with an underlying current of anger. "If someone has specific concerns, they're welcome to address them directly with me." Colbert laughed, but it was cold and humorless. "Address them directly? Like the grip on your last film who tried to suggest a more efficient way to set up a shot and got screamed at in front of the entire crew? That never happened. Or the craft services worker who accidentally brought you the wrong coffee and had to endure a 10-minute tirade about professionalism and respect? Stephen, I don't know where you're getting this information, but none of it is true." The audience was dead silent now. Even the cameramen seemed frozen, uncertain whether to keep rolling or cut away. This had moved far beyond the realm of typicals, late-night television, into something darker and more personal. Colbert stood up from behind his desk, walking around to perch on the edge, closer to Gosling. The physical intimidation was subtle but unmistakable. "The thing is, Ryan, I've built a career on calling out hypocrisy, and there's nothing I hate more than someone who presents themselves as humble and kind while treating the little people like garbage. I've never treated anyone like garbage, Gosling said, his voice rising slightly. And I'd appreciate it if you'd stick to discussing my work instead of spreading rumors and lies. Rumors and lies? Colbert's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. These are first-hand accounts from people who worked with you. People who were afraid to speak up because they knew it could hurt their careers. Gosling stood up from his chair, matching Colbert's aggressive body language. This is incredible. You invite me on your show under the pretense of promoting my film, then ambush me with fabricated stories from anonymous sources. What kind of journalism is this? The kind that holds celebrities accountable for their actions, Colbert shot back. The kind that gives a voice to the voiceless. By destroying someone's reputation based on hearsay and gossip, the tension in the studio was palpable. Security guards stood at attention near the exits, unsure whether intervention was necessary. The show's producers huddled behind the cameras, frantically whispering among themselves about how to handle this unprecedented situation. Colbert circled back behind his desk, retrieving a manila folder that had been sitting there all along. He opened it slowly, deliberately, making sure the cameras caught every movement. I have documentation, Ryan. Emails from production assistants, witness statements from makeup artists, a pattern of behavior that spans multiple films and multiple years. Gosling's face flushed with anger. Show me those documents. If you're going to make accusations like this on national television, have the courage to present your evidence. Oh, I will, Colbert smiled. But first, why don't you tell us about the incident in Toronto during the filming of your romantic drama 3 years ago? When you had an entire catering truck sent away because the sandwiches weren't cut diagonally? That's ridiculous. Or the time you made a wardrobe assistant cry because your shirt was wrinkled. None of this happened, Stephen. You're making things up. The audience began to murmur among themselves. Some seemed to believe Colbert's accusations, others appeared sympathetic to Gosling's denials. The late-night talk show format had been completely abandoned in favor of this bizarre public trial. Colbert opened the folder and pulled out what appeared to be printed emails. Here's one from Sarah Martinez. She worked craft services on your film about the jazz musician. Quote, Ryan Gosling berated me for 15 minutes because I didn't have oat milk for his coffee. He called me incompetent and said I was wasting everyone's time. I was so humiliated I had to leave the set and cry in my car. Gosling's face was red with fury now. I've never spoken to anyone that way in my life, and I don't even drink oat milk. This is character assassination, pure and simple. Character assassination? Colbert's voice dripped with sarcasm. Or just character revelation. The confrontation was escalating beyond anything either man had probably anticipated. What had started as Colbert's apparent attempt to expose Gosling's alleged bad behavior had devolved into something much more personal and vicious. The studio audience sat transfixed, witnessing what appeared to be the complete breakdown of civil discourse on live television. Gosling took a step toward Colbert's desk. I want to see every single one of those documents. I want to know who's making these accusations, and I want the chance to respond to them properly. You're responding right. Now, Ryan, and your response is telling us everything we need to know. My response is that you're a liar and a coward who hides behind his desk and his audience while making false accusations about people you've never worked with. The words hit Colbert like a physical blow. His composure cracked for just a moment, revealing something ugly underneath the polished television persona. The mask had slipped, and for a brief moment, the studio audience saw something raw and unfiltered cross Stephen Colbert's face. But he recovered quickly, that practiced smile sliding back into place like armor. A coward, Colbert repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. That's interesting coming from someone who's built an entire career on playing the strong, silent type because he can't handle actual confrontation. This isn't confrontation, Stephen. This is a hit job, and I'm starting to wonder why." Colbert's laugh was bitter. "Why? You really want to know why?" He stood up again, this time moving around the desk with predatory intent. "Because I'm tired of watching Hollywood protect its golden boys, while the real people, the ones who make your movies possible, get trampled underfoot." "That's a noble speech," Gosling said, his voice cutting. "But we both know this isn't about protecting anyone. This is personal." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Colbert's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the veneer of professional broadcaster completely disappeared. "Personal," Colbert's voice rose. "You think this is personal?" "I think you've had it out for me since the moment I walked through that door. The question is why?" The studio fell into an eerie silence. Even the crew seemed frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let this unprecedented drama continue to unfold. Colbert walked closer to Gosling, close enough that their conversation became intimate and threatening simultaneously. "You want to know what's personal, Ryan? What's personal is watching actors like you coast on your looks and your mystique, while real performers, real artists get overlooked because they don't fit Hollywood's narrow definition of leading man. Material." Gosling's eyes flashed with understanding. "This isn't about crew members or craft services workers. This is about you. Don't psychoanalyze me. You're bitter because you never made it as an actor, because you had to settle for talking about other people's success instead of having your own." The words hit their target with surgical precision. Colbert's face flushed red, and his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Settle?" Colbert's voice was barely controlled fury. "I chose this career. I built something meaningful. Something that matters. Did you choose it, Stephen? Or did it choose you after every casting director in Hollywood passed you over?" The audience gasped audibly. This had moved beyond professional disagreement into deeply personal territory. Colbert's breathing was heavy, his composure completely shattered. "You don't know anything about my journey," Colbert snarled. "You don't know what I've sacrificed, what I've built. I know you're using your platform to destroy someone's reputation, because you can't handle your own failures." Colbert slammed his hand down on his desk, the sound echoing through the studio like a gunshot. "Failures? I have one of the most successful shows on television. I've won awards. I've influenced political discourse. I've made a difference. And yet here you are, obsessing over actors, tearing them down because you'll never be one yourself. I never wanted to be an actor like you, Ryan. I wanted to be an artist, someone who used their craft to say something meaningful about the world." Gosling stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Then why are you wasting time making up stories about coffee orders and wardrobe complaints? If you're such an artist, where's your art in this?" The question struck at the heart of Colbert's entire premise. For a moment he seemed genuinely lost, searching for an answer that would justify his behavior. "The art is in exposing truth," he finally said, but the conviction was gone from his voice. "What truth?" "You admitted these are anonymous sources with unverifiable claims. You won't even show me the documents you're waving around." Colbert glanced down at the manila folder, his confidence wavering. "The truth about who you really are, who I really am." Gosling's voice rose with incredulity. "You don't know who I am. You've never worked with me, never spent time with me, never had a real conversation with me until tonight. And instead of using this opportunity to actually get to know me, you decided to ambush me with lies." "They're not lies." "Then prove it. Show me one credible source. Give me one name of someone willing to go on record with these accusations." Colbert opened the folder again, but his hands were shaking slightly. He pulled out more papers, but when he looked at them, something in his expression changed. "The sources need to be protected," he said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "Protected from what? From being exposed as liars? From retaliation? from having their careers destroyed by someone with your influence. Gosling laughed, but there was no humor in it. My influence? Stephen, you have a national television show. You have millions of viewers, major network backing, and a platform that reaches more people in one night than I could reach in a year of interviews. Who exactly has more influence here? The observation was devastating in its accuracy. Colbert seemed to shrink slightly, the weight of his own hypocrisy becoming apparent even to him. That's different, he said weakly. How is it different? You're using your platform to attack someone who came here in good faith to promote their work. You're hiding behind anonymous sources and unverifiable claims while positioning yourself as some kind of champion of the oppressed. But the only person being oppressed here is me. The audience was completely silent now, transfixed by this raw display of human conflict. Many seemed uncomfortable, unsure whether they should be witnessing something so personal and ugly. Colbert looked out at his audience, perhaps seeing them clearly for the first time during this entire confrontation. Their expressions ranged from confusion to disappointment to outright dismay. These were people who had come to be entertained, to laugh, to feel good about their evening. Instead, they were watching their beloved host destroy his own credibility. In real time. You don't understand the pressures of this job, Colbert said, his voice becoming defensive. The constant need to find new angles, to keep things interesting, to give people something they haven't seen before. So you decided to sacrifice my reputation for your ratings? It's not about ratings. Then what is it about, Stephen? Because, from where I'm sitting, it looks like you decided to throw away journalistic integrity and basic human decency for a few viral moments and social media buzz. Colbert's face was pale now, the reality of what he had done beginning to sink in. I have sources, real people with real grievances. Then bring them forward. If they have legitimate complaints, I'll address them. But hiding behind anonymity, while making public accusations isn't journalism, it's cowardice. I'm not a coward. Then act like it. Show me your evidence, or admit that you've made a mistake. The challenge hung in the air between them. Colbert looked down at his folder again, flipping through the pages with increasing desperation. His hands were visibly trembling now. These people, they trusted me to tell their stories, he said, but his voice was barely above a whisper. What people, Stephen? Show me one name. One verifiable source. One piece of concrete evidence that any of these incidents actually happened. Colbert's silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. The studio was so quiet that the hum of the air conditioning seemed deafening. Finally, he looked up at Gosling, and for the first time all evening, his expression was vulnerable rather than aggressive. I can't, he admitted. The two words fell, like stones into still water, creating ripples that would spread far beyond this studio. Gosling stared at him in disbelief. You can't? Or you won't? I can't because, Colbert's voice cracked slightly, because they don't exist. The admission hit the studio like a physical force. The audience collectively gasped, some covering their mouths in shock. Cameras continued rolling, capturing every moment of what would become one of the most infamous confessions in television history. They don't exist, Gosling repeated slowly, as if he couldn't quite believe what he had heard. You made it all up. Colbert's shoulders sagged as the weight of his confession settled over him. I thought if I could just get you to react, to show some kind of real emotion, then maybe I could find something authentic to work with. Authentic? Gosling's voice was filled with disgust. You call fabricating lies about me authentic? No, Colbert stammered, his usual eloquence completely abandoned. I wanted to break through the media training, the careful answers, the polished image. I wanted to see the real Ryan Gosling. The real Ryan Gosling? Gosling stepped closer, his voice rising with each word. The real Ryan Gosling is someone who came here tonight to talk about his work, to connect with your audience, to be a good guest on your show. But instead of trying to have a genuine conversation, you decided to wage psychological warfare based on complete fiction. The studio audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats, many looking toward the exits, as if they wanted to escape this increasingly uncomfortable situation. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was the public destruction of a man's career and integrity. "I'm sorry," Colbert said weakly. "I got carried away." "Carried away?" Gosling's laugh was harsh and bitter. "Stephen, you just spent 20 minutes systematically attempting to destroy my reputation on national television using fabricated evidence. That's not getting carried away. That's malicious and calculated." Colbert looked around the studio desperately, as if searching for some escape route from the hole he had dug for himself. His producers were frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, but it was far too late to salvage this disaster. "The pressure of live television," Colbert began, grasping for any excuse. "Sometimes you make choices that you wouldn't normally make. Don't blame this on live television. You planned this. You had folders, you had prepared questions, you had a strategy to humiliate me. This wasn't spontaneous. It was premeditated." The accuracy of Gosling's assessment was written all over Colbert's face. He couldn't deny the obvious truth that this ambush had been carefully orchestrated. "Why?" Gosling demanded. "I've never done anything to you personally. We've never even met before tonight. So why did you decide to try to ruin my life?" Colbert was quiet for a long moment, staring down at his hands. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with something that looked almost like tears. "Because I'm tired," he said quietly. "I'm tired of pretending that what I do here matters. I'm tired of asking the same meaningless questions and getting the same rehearsed answers. I'm tired of being a cheerleader for people who live in a completely different world from everyone else." "So you decided to take it out on me?" "I thought, if I could just one time have a real conversation instead of this choreographed dance we do, then maybe I could remember why I got into this business in the first place." Gosling stared at him in amazement. "A real conversation? Stephen, you could have achieved that by simply asking me real questions. You could have talked to me about my craft, my process, my thoughts on the industry, my experiences growing up in the business. Instead, you chose to attack me with lies. I know that now." "Do you? Because it seems to me like you're still trying to justify what you did instead of taking responsibility for it." The observation struck home. Colbert flinched as if he had been slapped. "You're right," he admitted. "I was wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. That's not enough, Stephen. You can't just say you were wrong and expect that to fix this. You've damaged my reputation in front of millions of people based on complete fabrications. You've violated every principle of journalistic integrity. You've betrayed the trust of your audience and your network." Colbert looked out at his audience again, seeing the disappointment and betrayal in their faces. These were people who had believed in him, who had trusted him to be fair and honest. Now they were witnessing his complete professional and ethical collapse. "What do you want me to do?" Colbert asked desperately. "I want you to tell the truth. Right now, on camera, to your audience. I want you to admit that every single accusation you made against me tonight was fabricated. I want you to acknowledge that you have no sources, no evidence, no basis whatsoever for any of the claims you made." The request hung in the air like a death sentence. For Colbert, such an admission would be professional suicide. But the alternative, trying to maintain the lie, was no longer viable given his earlier confession. Colbert started, then stopped. He looked around the studio one more time, perhaps hoping for some miraculous intervention that would save him from this moment. "Tell them, Stephen," Gosling pressed. "Tell your audience the truth." Colbert turned to face the cameras directly, his face pale and drawn. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need to tell you something important. The accusations I made against Ryan Gosling tonight The stories about his behavior on set, the claims about how he treats crew members, none of it is true. The studio was dead silent except for the hum of the cameras and the barely audible sound of Colbert's labored breathing. "I made it all up," he continued, his voice growing stronger as he committed to the confession. "I fabricated stories. I created fake sources. I invented incidents that never happened. I did this because I was frustrated with the superficial nature of celebrity interviews. But that's no excuse for what I did." Several audience members stood up and began walking toward the exits. Others sat in stunned silence, processing the complete destruction of their host's credibility. Ryan Gosling came here tonight in good faith to promote his film and to have a conversation with our audience. Instead, I ambushed him with lies and tried to destroy his reputation for my own selfish reasons. I am deeply sorry to him, to you, and to everyone who trusted me, to be honest. Gosling watched this confession with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. There was no joy in watching someone's career implode, even someone who had tried to destroy his own. "That's not enough," Gosling said quietly. "You need to resign." The words hit Colbert like a physical blow. "Resign? You've demonstrated that you can't be trusted with the responsibility of a national platform. You've shown that you're willing to destroy people's lives for entertainment. You can't come back from this, Stephen. And you shouldn't be allowed to." Colbert looked around the studio one final time, taking in the disappointed faces of his audience, the shocked expressions of his crew, the judgmental stares of his producers. Everything he had built over years of hard work was crashing down around him in real time. "Security," Colbert called out weakly. "Please escort Mr. Gosling from the building." But the security guards didn't move. They stood frozen, unsure whether to follow the orders of a host who had just admitted to fabricating an entire interview, or to protect a guest who had been wrongfully attacked. "They're not going to help you," Gosling said, "because everyone in this room knows that you're the one who should be escorted out." Colbert slumped back in his chair, the fight completely gone out of him. "I destroyed everything," he whispered. "Yes, you did. And the worst part is, it was all for nothing. You could have had a great interview tonight. We could have talked about acting, about creativity, about the challenges of the industry. Instead, you chose destruction over connection, lies over truth." Gosling straightened his jacket and looked directly into the camera. "To anyone watching this, I want you to know that what you witnessed here tonight is not normal. This is not how professional interviews are supposed to work. This is what happens when someone abuses their power and forgets their responsibility to the truth." He turned back to Colbert one final time. "I hope you get the help you clearly need, Stephen, but I also hope you never get another chance to do this to someone else." With that, Ryan Gosling walked off the Late Show stage, leaving behind a broken host, a traumatized audience, and one of the most shocking moments in television history. The cameras continued rolling for several more minutes, capturing Colbert sitting alone at his desk, staring at nothing, as the reality of what he had done and what it would cost him finally sank in. The studio audience filed out in stunned silence, and within hours, clips of the confrontation would be trending worldwide, marking the end of Stephen Colbert's career and serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting personal frustration override professional integrity. That's the incredible story of how one man's desperate attempt to create compelling television instead created one of the most devastating public meltdowns ever captured on camera. What do you think drove Colbert to make such a catastrophic decision? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more shocking stories from the world of entertainment.